You know we're doing a podcast right now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
Hey, I'm super serious. I'm so stoked. I've been pounding you to get you over here.
I know, dude. I'm glad
I appreciate you coming. I've been so stoked to get you on the podcast, and I'll probably tell you why so many times over it. I'm gonna save that for a second because what'd you just ask me? I forgot. The setup.
The setup, yeah. The podcast setup is awesome.
Yeah. So ironically, the thing is, I started doing a podcast in 2017 with my buddy Dave Fisher, who coaches over in Austria right now.
No way.
Yeah, he coaches hockey over there. He is ranked as all-time. He's he's top 10 for sure, best American-born European professional hockey players.
Is that right?
Yeah. And he was a first-round pick in the NHL, I think, with Montreal, played at Minnesota. Just a super funny dude. You'd love this guy. And we did our first podcast in 2017, that summer when he was home for the offseason. And we went to, I don't know, we went to some like radio store or something.
Yeah.
And we bought a mic. 2 mics and a recorder for like $1,000. That might have been a lot. I don't know, a couple $100.
Yeah.
And we were so nervous, dude. It took us we did a few, never recorded them because we didn't know how to find our voice. Like the first time I ever did it, I was like, yeah. So, and, and you start like
radio.
Yeah, he
voice.
was doing it. And I always kind of tell this story. So then we actually did our first podcast that summer at some point, and we just pounded a bottle of whiskey to get us through it. And it was
I bet that got unique.
Oh yeah, it's just so fascinating. So then I did that for a significant amount of years. And then I was doing another show that I sort of created. And then I did a little mini series last fall when I was just sort of bored. I did them on online with JP, Knack, Brian Bannister. Were you with him?
Yeah.
With Banny, Beatty was on one.
Okay.
Did some things. And then this past year, I came to Arizona and I was like, I was talking to Chelsea about it. I was like, I really want to do podcasting. I still want to keep doing this. I've been doing it for almost 8 years now.
Right.
But I wanted to, she was like, you got to step your game up.
Yeah. You were like, I'm going to take this thing to the next level.
Yeah. Basically, she's like, because when I was doing the ones on Zoom, I didn't buy the upgrade even. So it cut off at 40 minutes. So there was a couple of them we were doing it and it would be like you maybe mid talk and then boom, shut off. So we shut that down. We're taking it for real. This is our 4th go called Moment with Mart. And I appreciate you having a moment with me.
Absolutely.
I do a little smoke. I've been doing it the last couple shows to set the stage, and I'm going to keep giving credit till I forget Tommy LaStella.
Tommy.
He was the big guy who forced creating the stage of conversation on me. He used to yell at me if we had conversations post games back in the day and the environment wasn't set, he'd get super mad at me.
So you always had to be burning some sage around the clubhouse.
Well, this is
or whatever that. What is that? It looks like a piece of wood.
Yeah, I still am not sure what we're calling.
Is it just a burning smell, or
yeah? Just let it hit you.
All right,
it's gonna take you somewhere else.
I like it.
Yeah, get it over there for you.
Okay, I got that. You
see what I'm saying? You feel how it's settling in?
Yeah, 100%.
So the reason why I was pumped to get you, and I wasn't gonna let you off the hook because I wanted to get over here to have a conversation with you, is because years ago when I first met you. You were so intriguing to me because in a matter of 2 weeks, you did 3 profound things.
Is that right?
That drastically stood out to me at this exact moment.
This is the first time I'm hearing about these. So
yeah.
This is gonna be good.
One, you were making your own coffee.
Yeah.
For a day game in a clubhouse. And you were doing the whole thing. And you can talk deeper about it, but it was you're pressing it on your own. You're putting it together. You're making your own coffee. So that's the first thing that stands out to me. I go, this is an interesting.
This guy's different.
Yeah, I like this guy. What is this guy about? Second thing is, I find out a day or two later or whatever the next day game, I get an invite. I can't remember who invited me, but someone says, Harv, let's go to Sausalito. We're gonna have seafood on the water after the game. And they go, Shelby's coming. So now I'm like, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I want to hang out with this guy. And you were the first person I'd ever known to bring bottles of wine to the restaurant.
Yeah.
So now you're 2 for 2.
Yeah.
And I'm going, who the hell is this guy? And then the third one kind of stole the show for me. We're in San Diego. If you remember, we went to Little Italy, whatever their Italy is in San Diego.
We went to that restaurant with that owner.
And you took us up into this rooftop dinner. I didn't know where we were. We're having crazy conversations. Unbelievable night. And you were just kind of the storyteller, ringleader. You were playing the middle of the table. The middle of the table always has to control the scene. And then you left, and I was like, man, what was that? Who was that guy?
The guy, I forget his name. I have his contact in there. I think Webby knew him pretty well too. But he opened that. I think the restaurant, there might have been people downstairs. I don't know if he opened the restaurant up specifically for us, but I felt like we pretty much had it to ourselves. And we were just pounding buckets of Peroni.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was a great time.
And then we opened up some wine and had some bomb Italian. But yeah, that was those 2 weeks in San Francisco for me, because I was, obviously got called up a little later. I had been in Sacramento with in AAA for I don't know, three months, and I was brewing coffee down there for the guys. I had a system called the Ratio 8. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's like an automatic pour over machine, and I was just making coffee for the boys. I'd probably make like 6 pots throughout the day.
Come on.
Yeah. And I was just crushing coffee. We had a whiteboard above the coffee station. I had the clubby down there give me a setup where I could roll it around and stuff, and it said Chuck's Coffee Co. That's kind of the dream for me, to open a coffee shop one day. And Chuck comes from Charles, which is my grandfather's name, my middle name.
Okay.
And I just feel like that's a good flow for a coffee shop name. So I was brewing coffee down there, and then I brought it to when I got called up. I was still continuing to do it.
Yeah.
I had that AeroPress.
Yeah.
That's what that's
okay,
called.
That's what that
which
was.
is the little portable coffee. Actually, the coffee of the year that year in 22 won on an AeroPress, because you got the regular pour over.
Yeah.
You got like espresso and all that. AeroPress won coffee of the year.
How does something like that happen in terms of how does that generate the coffee of the year?
I don't know. I think just the whole system, the way it is, it's kind of its own unique setup. It has like it's called inverted, and I'd have to look it up. I haven't done it in a while. I got to bring that back. But I think the way the whole system works is, you got the little paper filter in there.
Yeah.
And then, you heat the coffee up. I had a little kettle I carried around with me. And then from there, you just kind of let it steep for about two minutes, and then you press it down with pressure.
Well, it's wild to me that I guess the question I'm thinking is like the difference a machine makes. Because I used to I had this pot that I was always doing at home. I'll shorten up my coffee talk. I went through coffee for many years, didn't think twice about it. And then I reached quality coffee for the first time, probably honestly when I got to San Francisco.
San Francisco has so many good coffee shops.
Yeah, and I don't think I necessarily knew what was happening. I just know in 21 it was like I really haven't gone back. In San Francisco, it was like A, it was really exciting to find coffee shops. Mm-hmm. And B, I was like, these taste like there's something about this.
Right.
And I swear the buzz is different too.
Oh, 100%.
And so then whatever, you go through the summers, you find your coffee shops, you find them throughout the country, you kind of find your pockets, if you will. But then I came home this year. We went to Costa Rica last year and went into a coffee farm.
You sent me some pictures and videos of that. That was pretty sweet.
It was sweet. But what I realized, we just bought that Breville. Are you familiar? Are you familiar with that one?
I heard one of those.
Okay, I heard that was sort of the starter kit.
Yeah, like a little entry level.
Yeah, you get entried in, and we were nervous, just like getting a cold tub.
Yeah,
you got to get your feet wet.
100%.
And so we were getting our feet wet on that. But I don't leave the house for coffee anymore.
No.
But it's the machine.
The machine is like I've sent you my setup. I have a Rocket Espresso machine at home, and I was going out and getting coffee all the time, right? And then that adds up when you're going to coffee shops and getting a pour over and a quad shot espresso and all of that.
$70 a week.
Yeah, that adds up. And then it's just like I do enjoy going to coffee shops, though, just the ambiance and And the feel, when you're in a good one.
Oh yeah.
If you walk in and the guy has a good mustache and some tattoos, you're in the right spot.
Yeah,
You know
we're
what I mean?
jamming.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write a book today.
So but after that, I was like, man, I'm just gonna get my own setup and kind of start doing it. I have a pretty good passion about it, and I usually just make pour overs and pull shots in the morning.
How did the passion begin?
Hunter Pence.
Oh wow,
Hunter Pence.
He's taking me deep, and he's got his own coffee shop, doesn't he? Or his own coffee brand, maybe.
He does. Pineapple Labs. I think him and his wife have Pineapple Labs in Houston. He's got a coffee shop in Houston though too. It's called something with.
Is that when he's on the Astros?
Something. Yeah, I think so. I think he still lives there, or he bounces back and forth between there and San Fran. But he in Texas in 19, he kind of. I grew up a Hunter Pence fan. I was a huge Astros fan, so I knew who he was, and obviously respected his game, his hustle. He never took a playoff ever. And I remember one day in spring training when I finally met him, we started going to coffee shops before we would head out all the way out to Surprise, because he was in Arcadia as well.
Sure.
And ever since then, dude, I was like, man, this guy knows what's up. And he has crazy energy, right?
Oh, gosh.
I thought this guy was, I was like, where is he getting this from? So I hopped on board with Hunter and followed in his footsteps a little bit with the coffee game. And he kind of showed me that next level. Like you said, once it's like wine too, when you have the entry level, you're like, oh, this is good.
Yeah.
And then you have something really crazy good. You're like, okay, this is what it's about. Same with coffee.
Really anything, right? You think of it, I talk a lot with Pollock actually about this with the saunas. I tried to use an analogy the other day and compare it to scotch. And I was like, well, you can get drunk off any scotch.
Correct.
But there's a difference when you have good scotch.
It's a better drug.
It's a better drug, and it's the same thing with the sauna. Yeah. Anybody can sweat at 200 degrees.
Yeah.
But when there's a good stove, it's a different sweat. And so I think it's the same.
Stoves.
Oh, I love stoves. Well, that's the heart. That's the heart of the sauna is the stove. And I went over to Finland.
Yeah, I was about to say you travel the world to sauna.
I did Finland and Estonia a couple years ago to purely Kuma stove.
Those are wood fire burning.
Wood fire.
Yeah.
Kuma, in my opinion, is the best stove I've seen. Largely for commercial, it's the best thing I've seen in the world, and it's in northern Minnesota.
Is that a rock one or?
It's rocks on top of the stove. It's just a hardy. Like man-made, just a beast.
Not gonna go down.
It's not gonna go down. It's gonna last forever.
Keeps the heat.
It's radiant heat. It's penetrating. It's just a really powerful thing, and it's wood burning, obviously. So you got to learn how to navigate it. You do have to work the stove. I think that's the other thing. There's a lot of stuff that goes with that. But when I went over to Finland, I was studying their stoves and what they were doing, and I did smoke sauna. That was probably one of my favorite. Obviously the wood burners are my favorite. The thing about wood burning, Iki, I like Iki.
Okay.
Iki is a Finnish brand. That's what Cobb has.
Okay.
Which is electric.
Okay.
And then Hume is an Estonian brand.
Yeah, that's the one I got.
Yeah, which is good.
Yeah, that one's pretty solid.
Yeah, it is. Those are good ones. I like Iki more for the electric. Kuma is my favorite for the wood. The thing about the wood is it goes back to a quality coffee. There's two parts to it. One, you get smell and sound. You're hearing a crackling fire the entire time.
That would be nice.
Yeah, and then the heat is radiant, so it's like it penetrates you. It's
really?
it's just like a deeper, real sensory burn.
Yeah. Hurts almost.
Yeah, so it's just like when you do that. I mean, in Minnesota for years, I was sauna and only wood burning. And then when I got out of that, and when I was in San Francisco. Obviously, most of the saunas you do are on the roads or in hotels.
I don't think you can have a wood-burning stove in the clubhouse.
No, you can't.
Might be a fire hazard or something.
So this is a perfect thought into what I saw of you when I first met you, and I gravitated towards you. And I was so excited when I got to see you a little bit this summer when you guys came out to San Francisco, and I got to see you in the outfield for a minute. But the thing that you just shared about your experience with Hunter, there's a thing that I'm most fascinated with people in general. Because sure, that might be in the form of coffee and you found a love for coffee, but you're a curious dude.
Yeah.
In general.
I'm branching out a little bit.
Yeah. And that intrigues me. Yeah. That's what I loved about you when I first met you. And it's like, you've been playing professional baseball for how many years now?
15 since 09. Too long, it feels like.
15 years, dude.
It's been a long time.
That's incredible. Sip that slow. Sip that slow. You want to get another espresso in there?
I might.
15 years of curious man. Where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in, I was born in Round Rock, Texas, right outside of Austin.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was raised in Brownwood, Texas. So small town of about 15,000 people, central, middle of nowhere, kind of near Abilene, if you know where Abilene is.
Yeah.
I grew up in a tiny town, and football, in Texas is huge. And kind of grew up just playing football. And there was this guy, I was really good at baseball growing up as well, but this guy named Jared Ray, he was from Waco. So Waco, we had 3 teams. There's Waco University, Waco Midway, and Waco High that were in our division when we were in 4A, my sophomore year and junior year. And my sophomore year, this guy I'll never forget this, through a chain link fence, asked me if I played like summer ball and stuff for baseball. And I was like, no, I play football in a podunk town there. Ain't much to do here. And he's like, I need you to call this guy. So I called this guy. His name's Gavin Wright. He was an agent at the time. They call them advisors because they can't represent you until you actually are a professional.
Sure.
And I called this guy, and I started playing summer ball for Austin Slam. 3 months later, I commit to like Texas A&M.
Oh, wait, run me back.
That fast, yeah.
How old were you when you started summer ball?
It probably was my junior year.
So you weren't playing serious baseball? I wasn't
playing serious baseball for
till you were 16?
Majority of my life, yeah.
And you're in a small town.
Small town.
How did this guy know to? I think I was so locked into that now I got to go back for a second.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So how did this guy know to tell you to go play summer ball? How did he see this?
Because
obviously you were talented.
Yeah, I was talented, and probably he had never heard of me. It was the first time I think we were even playing this team. This team played. So get this, teams would have baseball year round at some high schools.
Yeah.
Brownwood didn't have that. So these guys were dedicated baseball players. That's all they played.
Yeah.
And I think we ended up probably losing that game. And, but he kind of saw my talent, right?
Yeah,
He was like, hey, do you play summer ball, whatever? And I was like, no. So he's like, you need to call this guy.
Yeah, you need to go play
today. And, I called him, and I started playing summer ball. So it might have been my junior year when I faced this team. And then I called him, started playing for Austin Slam summer ball, and then, ended up committing like Texas A&M my junior year. Continued playing summer ball like into my senior year, and had for the first time, there was like in this small town there was scouts.
Oh wow!
So there was 20 scouts, and I had this picture. My dad has it hanging up somewhere in the house with like 20 scouts holding up radar guns behind home plate.
And you're in high school.
And I'm in high school. And ended up getting drafted out of Brownwood at 19th overall. 19th overall in the first round. Never would have thought. And this would have never happened if it wasn't for Jared Ray on the other side of the fence.
No way.
I swear to God. And we never beat that team until my senior year because they were really good. And we had good players on our team as well. But we didn't play baseball year round. And this team did. I remember my senior year, I think you only played 7 inning, or it was 9 inning games. Maybe it was a 7 inning game. I can't remember. But I threw like 180 pitches to beat this team.
In front of the scouts too, or just
But my advisors and dad weren't very happy about it because it was my senior year.
For
if
sure.
I get hurt, because I had it, they told me if I was, if you have a good year, you're going to get drafted, pretty high. And I still played football my senior year. Took a chance of getting hurt doing that.
Yeah,
and then
because you knew you were going to get picked.
I knew I was going to get picked. Still played football, and then I threw 180 pitches in a game to beat that team because I wanted to beat them that bad.
Yeah, dude.
My coach was like, "Are you good? You still want to throw?" I was like,
"Yeah, I got him."
I said, "Don't take me out of this
Just
game."
put the glove. Just put one down, huh?
That's all I threw was heaters.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that guy Jared Ray, I don't know where he's at or if he hears this podcast, but I appreciate you.
Yeah, man.
He's the one who. I really believe he's the one who kind of set my career up for me. Kind of changed the trajectory of my life, I would say. Through a chain link fence.
True.
Through a chain link fence.
I mean, if that's not the title of your first ever podcast.
Yeah.
Chain link fence,
Chain link
15
fence.
years later.
Yeah,
Here it
15
is.
later, we're here. Jerry Ray.
So there's a lot in there, dude, that first of all, that's remarkable. But if you can think back to, because that is different. I haven't heard many stories like that. I've been around a lot of athletes, obviously. That story, I think what is really crazy to me is that happened within a year.
It all happened so fast.
Yeah. So what is that like? You, your family, friends, like what's that look like?
It was insane because my parents actually struggled pretty good financially growing up. So I was living in my grandma's house, dude, and it was probably the size of this living room. It was maybe 1,200 square feet house.
Yeah.
Turquoise on the outside.
Nice.
So every time I'd go have my, a girl or something pick me up, I'd walk down the street and have them pick me up at the park because I didn't want them to see me coming out of this blue house. And now I'm like, I'm grateful for it, but it's like, I had all these scouts and they run you through all these tests and stuff, right? To make sure you're not a crazy.
You're about to give you some money.
Yeah, about to give you some money. And I took 30 tests for all teams. Every single team came to my house. And I just remember filling all this stuff out, with the scouts sitting in the living room, talking to my parents, and I'm over there at a table filling out this psychotic test or whatever. And, that it was all in the blink of an eye. I mean, it's, when you're like young and you're like, man, I can't wait to kind of grow up. I'd do anything to go back to those days. Those days were fun, but it happened all so fast. And, a year later, I'm in Quad Cities, Iowa, playing minor league baseball.
Come on.
Pretty insane.
What year was that?
That was 2010, my first full season in Quad Cities.
I played
Davenport.
I played with Appleton.
Oh, yeah.
I know Quad Cities.
Yeah.
I think
the Timber
played,
Rattlers.
Yeah, the Timber Rattlers. I think we played in Quad Cities. Yeah, we definitely played against you guys. There was a time, I think we went to Quad Cities, and there was like the Mississippi flooded.
Oh, yeah.
And we had to walk. They did like a man-made bridge all the way to the field, like blocks over. The water didn't get into the stadium.
Yeah, it sits a little bit above the water.
Yeah, I probably have a picture of it somewhere. But so that's incredible. I think the thing that's crazy to me is it's like two sides. Like one side of me thinks about how amazing that is, and the other side of me thinks about how crazy scary that had to have been, and the speed in which you did have to grow up.
Mm-hmm.
Because you come from your background, you're in this small town, and now all of a sudden, I mean, you tell me, but I can't help but think now all of a sudden you've got people who are instantaneously treating you differently.
Yeah.
Because now there's money. Now you're with an organization. You're probably the high prospect.
Yeah.
You have all these things.
Yeah.
And you're just sort of figuring out, I don't even know. Or do you even know who you are at that point? Like what'd you learn about humanity? I know it's a big question, but I can't help but ask it.
Well, you definitely have to grow up fast. I mean, it was, you go from your mom and washing your laundry and taking care of you to kind of having to grow up pretty fast. And the thing is like most of these guys, went to college and, they knew the roommate thing. And I remember I showed up to I didn't even have shower shoes. I was just walking in the shower without sandals on, and everybody else has sandals on. I'm just like looking down. I'm like,
what is this?
I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. And
then I'm having to find roommates and just like make these connections. You're a new guy to the team. I remember going, to my first spring training and having a roommate in the hotel, Sam Freeman, who's still a good friend, and just kind of having to like put the pieces together, not really knowing, this is all so new. I was living in my house 2 months ago, and you just have to kind of figure it out. I mean, there's not a lot back then. That was kind of more old school. I bet now if you're, a rookie, there's a lot more help.
Yeah.
But it was kind of just show up and figure it out. There was no one to really hold your hand and kind of guide you.
Do you have a host family?
I didn't have a host family.
Oh, so you were truly figuring it out.
Yeah.
I had a host family in Appleton.
Yeah, and they kind of helped you out a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, they give you cars and stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, I had a car. My roommate and I had a car. But you're right. I mean, I think that recently changed where they help you out with getting you an apartment.
Yeah,
I think the money came up.
Yeah, the money comes up.
And those sort of things. So you climbed through the minors. Dude, I feel like Because my first acknowledgement, you were in the big leagues young.
Yeah, I was up in 2012.
12.
Yeah.
Because I was still in college, which is crazy, hilarious to think about. Because I think I'm older. I'm 35.
I just turned 34 in October.
Yeah. So
I was up young.
Yeah. So you were young and you
young.
carved.
Yeah. My first couple of years. Well, what was funny about that is that like when I signed with St. Louis,
Yeah.
I was a huge Astros fan. Like I told you,
Yeah.
growing up, Hunter Pence, Craig Biggio, the Killer Bees, whatever.
Yeah.
And I had a deal set up with Houston. They were the 21st pick. St. Louis was the 19th. And I hadn't really talked to St. Louis at all
it's crazy how that works.
How this process. And they took me, and I remember my dad, we were watching it live, and St. Louis picks, Shelby Miller or whatever. My dad's like, I could just see him go, like the disappointment on his face. Because I had already had an agreement with the Astros. I think the Blue Jays were after that, and they were like, no, we're not taking you. And he was so disappointed. And Houston was kind of going through that rebuild stage then too, and they weren't that great of a baseball team. I mean, now they're a lot better.
Yeah.
But St. Louis ended up taking me, and I'm so happy they did, because that organization at the time was, they had Adam Wainwright, Chris Carpenter, Yachty, Pujols was there, and just a good baseball team. Great organization, and I ended up going there, and they had this thing called the Cardinal Way.
Yeah.
And kind of just molded me into like what kind of player I wanted to be, in the future. And being around all those veterans, being in a winning culture, kind of set the tone for, what I expect out of myself as a baseball player, and on the field and off the field, and just how I think getting drafted by that team kind of
helped
me, grow up even faster, I guess.
I think the crazy thing is I can't wrap my head around this, man. I can't wrap my head around the fact that you got the chain link fence story. Yeah. And in 2012, you're in the big leagues with the St. Louis Cardinals, first round pick. And now you go from no shower shoes to still that age in the big leagues. And now you're around
21.
now you're around these, you're 21 years old. You're around some iconic names. I mean, those are some heavy hitters you just dropped. I still got to go. It's kind of a similar question, but it's like, I just don't think many people would be able to handle that. And I can't imagine you're on a plane at 21, you're in these hotels, you're seeing money regularly, and kind of like we talked about before we even got on the podcast, right? It's like, you see this entirely new world. Because now there's all your teammates in the big leagues are rich too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, but there's this side of it. It's like, do you feel like you were prepared? Do you feel like you were able to handle that because of maybe something in your childhood or awareness towards a certain thing? Or do you feel like I don't have the question. I have it. It's just it's a big question because it's a big thought. I just feel like that would break a lot of people.
Well, the thing is like the game's not like this anymore. But I remember being in like spring training my first year, and they didn't consider you a veteran in the locker room until you had arbitration, or not a veteran. You were still kind of like a rookie. Like it wasn't like you got 1 year under your belt. All right, everything got easier. It wasn't like that. I remember they had this big table in spring training, and I would sit down at it, have breakfast, and they're like, no, go sit in your locker and eat by yourself. And then it was like that. And then it was, I wasn't allowed to lift in the gym until all the veteran guys were out of it. Right. So there wasn't no young guy and veteran guy in the gym together. You were not allowed to get on the training room table unless you're like actually hurt. There's no like feel good in any of that. So I think that taught me to kind of like sit back in the shadows and observe and watch how these guys go about, about their business. And then one day you can have this type of situation. And I was, usually like a happy-go-lucky guy, talk, to kind of, just hang out with people and chop it up.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that. It was kind of like military status over there, and it was stay in your lane. You're young. You just sit back, watch, and observe, and
eat in your locker.
And don't shower. Even my rookie year in the big leagues, I didn't go through the food until like the guys who have played had eaten already. And then veterans, they had a golden tea in there. Don't even look at it. Wasn't allowed to sit on the couches unless you had like a year of service in the locker room. It was pretty hardcore. So that kind of taught me like, so on the planes, it wasn't like I'm back there playing poker with the boys and then having a cocktail or something. I'm sitting there in my chair.
Wait until you get to the city.
Until I get hit with like with a rag in the back of the head or something, or AJ Przenski comes by and messes up my hair, or they're always just messing with you. But kind of like, that's how, in a short story, got introduced to the big leagues. And I think that just kind of, it's changed now, obviously. It's not like that. But I got stories for days on that kind of stuff.
Well, how do you pitch in that? Because I feel like that's an because at the end of the day, you have to deal with all that. I understand that in the clubhouse culture of those things, but then you still have to go out in front of 40,000 people and pitch. And it's still, what are you going to do? It's your career, it's your livelihood, it's your dreams, whatever.
Right.
And you still got to go out and execute. What happens when it's in between the lines? Because you're dealing with that stuff regularly. It's outside of you. Like a plane is, you've been at the field for 8 hours already. Yeah. Now you got to go back on a plane.
So you're just
time. Constantly for months.
They'd leave you alone on the start days, but in between the start days was tough. I don't know, man. I think, like I said, like that, we had a good team, and I was very young when I got called up, and I was a top prospect for a long time. I think there was just that expectation of like success there, and I had mentors like Wainwright, who was a really good one for me on just, how to prepare. We'd have to go out and watch bullpens. I would talk to him about what he watches on video and how he studies hitters and stuff like that. And I just think that kind of helped me get my feet wet. And then, learning from them, watching them. I think observing them, like I said, I keep using that word, but I think just watching them was what taught me and gave me confidence, and like knowing that if you're in that locker room, you belong there. I think the second you know this, and I'm sure you tell your players this, is just like the second you doubt yourself, you're just in a hole. Yeah, it's over.
It's over. You can't do it. That's why I just think it's so intriguing to me, because I want to go back to that, but this is again why things like this are so cool to me, and hearing people's stories and and things that they've gone through. Because one of the things that was so apparent to me when you were making coffee in that clubhouse is your comfortability of being yourself in a clubhouse.
Yeah.
That's what stood off the charts to me. Whenever that was that 2022?
That was 2022.
Yeah. So we're talking 10 years later from what the current story is of what you're sharing. And you're talking about, I didn't know that story about you, from that travel ball to instantly going to the first round, and now we're in the big leagues at 21. I knew you were in the big leagues young. I remembered that. I didn't know that story before that.
Right.
So, and I think a lot of the things that I've learned for myself, and then when I watch other people, one of the things that I really admire, or I guess appreciate about the path of professional sports, is I really do think I know there's a lot of cool things with like society and what it does for the country and people like the teams and all this stuff. And there's all that. But in terms of a spiritual aspect of it, I think it really does carve you into you and make you, if you're going to make anything worth anything, you're going to figure out who you are. And I think that there's obviously tons of different platforms for everybody to do that. We were just birthed into the baseball world.
Right.
And I think if you have success in baseball, I think the ultimate success is you ultimately do learn more of who you are.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying to you that stood out to me in 2022, is that I saw you infiltrate into this clubhouse, integrate yourself, hanging out with people. Obviously, a lot of people knew you anyway, so I'm sure it was easier. But it was like I just saw you were very authentic. I still do, obviously. I'm just talking about the first time I saw you. Yeah. I just thought you were like, you knew who you were. And that is always, for me, someone who's like sees things like that, it's kind of observation.
Right.
It's like I observed that, and then I just can't help it. I'm like, well, I want to know how.
What's this
How
guy's
the
story?
hell did he figure out? Like, how did he feel? How did he get to the point where he was able to make coffee comfortably and just like say hello and shake hands? But hearing stuff like this, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, trial and error too. Like, I mean, I think San Francisco at that point had been maybe my 7th or 8th organization, but I think my 7th.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, like you said, I had a ton of, you know, I had a lot of success early. I was an all-star in 15 with Atlanta, and then I got traded to Arizona in 16. And first time I kind of really experienced, you know, struggle and failure. And I look back, I don't know how well I handled it. I mean, I pitched better like in 17, but like the first time, and then, you know, you start having to sign these minor league deals later in your career, and you're getting older, and you just kind of have to, I call that, you know, you just kind of got to be a little gritty. And I was with the Yankees in 21. I didn't play during COVID.
Okay.
I kind of opted out that year. That was the year Kyler was born, so I came home. So I kind of had this gap of like weird baseball for me, right? Where like 19 get released for the first time with Texas, like halfway through the year, and then I played in the minor leagues from basically half of 19 to all of 22. So 3 years of just grinding it out in the minor leagues, and then came to San Francisco after I opted out with the Yankees, and been in the big leagues since then.
Yeah.
So I think it's just I think that success and then the failure and all the in between kind of like makes you like, hey, this is like real. You know, it's not always going to be perfect and easy. And I think that's kind of what, you know, I was just happy to be back in San Francisco in the big leagues and be around that guy. Like I told you before the pod, that's an easy clubhouse to come into.
Yeah,
you know,
cool
and good.
That's
group,
a really cool group.
Really cool group. Knew a lot of the guys, Woody and Cobb and Logan and all those guys. So that made it easy because it's usually, you know, when you're going to a new team and meeting new people, it's hard to remember names. And hard to settle in and
you got to figure out the flow.
You got to figure out the flow, and that was an easy one to go into. So, it's been a wild ride.
What was 16? Take me through 16.
16 was probably I was in a big trade with Swanson and come over to Arizona, and I don't know, you know, tough park to pitch in. We had just signed Greinke as well, and just a ton of expectations as a group for us to, you know, kind of give it a ride. I mean, the NL West is a tough division, but I struggled. Greinke didn't pitch that well. It's just kind of one of those down years. I got optioned that year down to Reno. And
you had been in the big leagues the whole time?
The whole time. First time I've been optioned was like 3.5 years later.
That's incredible.
So it's kind of, you know, like you see guys get optioned now, and it's usually like they get called up for like a week or so and they get optioned. So 3.5 years in the big leagues and then get an option was kind of an eye opener for me. And I came back up that second half and threw pretty well. But I don't know, that was just a unique year. And then ended up getting TJ and stuff. And it took me a while to kind of feel like myself again with just the pitches and the feel and the movement and the body, just getting back down the hill. So it kind of took some time. But
there's do you think that when you get success so early, there can be a negative effect to it? Sort of like an invisible prison to yourself in it?
I would say so.
You think so?
I would say so. I mean, just because I feel like I hadn't really, like, even in the minor leagues, I pitched pretty well. I mean, and before I got called up, I was kind of not throwing all that well in the PCL, like the first half, but then I had a really good second half. And I think you're so used to like being like maybe the top prospect and throwing well. The first time you have to really, like, that Arizona 16 was hands down the first time I've really, really pitched poorly and had to deal with some adversity. And I didn't know really, you know, you're searching for answers, you're looking at video and all that, and it could have just, and to be quite honest, you lose a little confidence. And then, like you said, when you do that, it's just like you don't really have a chance when you're out there.
Right.
The second you know, doubt yourself and you're like, man, I don't even know what's going on or any of this. It's just like, and it was just like a waterfall effect of just negativity and bad thoughts. And I mean, ultimately what probably just led to a bad year. And then, you know, I went into that off season. I was like, F that, you know, we got to figure this out for real. And then had that kind of FU attitude.
Yeah. That was when was TJ?
17. I came back like throwing in spring training. I remember I went back to Dallas for the offseason. I was throwing like 100 miles an hour that next year.
Yeah.
Because I was just getting jacked in the gym and was on a vengeance to be good again. And
Yeah, just pure
and
hatred.
then I just blew my arm out because I was trying to be too good.
So what does that feel like when you have a tough year in 16, but you're like, okay, I get motivated. I'm going to come back. I'm going to really let this thing rip. And then you get after it, you're throwing 100. You've probably seen those numbers and you're like, okay, like forget everybody I know that mind.
The doubters are gone.
Yeah, I know the mind.
Yeah.
But then your body says, no,
Yeah.
you're going to have to stop and you're going to have to spend an hour or a year and
some change.
Yeah.
Rehab.
And the first couple of months you're going to spend in silence.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's a lonely room.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's a lonely room. And I think that was even harder than, pitching and getting shelled. Is like just sitting there in a training room, especially when the team's on the road. You stay back at the spring training complex.
Yeah.
And I think I might have been the only one hurt at the time, and it was just like, man, this sucks. It sucked. But like I said, you just had to everybody's got to go. I mean, not everybody, but you just have to find ways to get through the days and make sure you're taking care of what you need to take care of.
Well, I've always thought about it as, and even in my own life, I fear this sometimes. You know how you can kind of have success and you fear losing it because you think of where you came from, and you're like, I don't want to go back to that turquoise house.
I don't want to go back to that turquoise house. Exactly.
What's cool, but you're right. I think of a lot of people who I've seen who get called up, and a lot of people know they're going to get sent down soon anyways.
Yeah.
And
imagine that feeling.
That's what I'm saying. But
imagine that.
But I'm stuck on being in the big leagues for 3+ years and then going back.
Yeah. I was in arbitration. I got sent down.
I mean, how do you handle, what's your ego like?
Oh, not good. I mean, it's kind of like I was just in a huge trade. I'm getting paid really well.
Yeah.
Pitching like crap, and you get sent down to AAA, and all those young guys are kind of like, what the hell is this guy doing?
Yeah, what's he doing here?
Yeah, what's he doing here? You're kind of like down in the dumps pretty good. Pretty good there. I mean, that was
I bet. How can you not be?
Yeah, but then it's like, man, what do I got to do to not ever let this happen again type situation, Like it was a bad feeling.
Yeah.
So you learn things and it teaches you because that feeling sucks, right? Like you never want to get that call into the office or where it's you're getting DFA'd or you're getting sit down or optioned. And I think some of the best baseball players and just human and guys who are able to accept it and just get sent down and like learn and get better. For me, being like as a young guy, like if you're optioned early, it's kind of like expected, right? For me, it was almost like, man, is my career done?
Yeah, like what just happened?
I never thought this was even in the cards, in the playing cards. So I can't. It was so freaking long ago, but like I remember being pretty beat up about it.
How has that helped you where you're at now as a person?
I mean, like I told you just a while ago, it's just like I think felt like I've been reading a lot of like stuff on Instagram and stuff about like failure, like all these motivational things. Like you don't really, if you can, find, it's weird to say, but like find success and failure, right? Like that, those are the times that like it's easy to find success when everything's going well,
right?
And you're on cloud 9, but like to learn from, when you're down deep and you're under the water a little bit, to find success there is what is the most powerful thing I think in the world, right? Like when nothing's going your way and you have the most negative thoughts and all of that. To come out of that and to find out what you need to do to get better or to not let that happen again, I think that's where, players are built.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of where you grow your endurance.
Yeah. There you go.
So let's go back to, we gotta hang with me.
I'm with you.
Let's go back to my original thought of coffee and curiosity. through all those times in the 15 years and the experiences and the travels and the places and the different uniforms, up, down, these sort of things, do you think that when you're down and out and even when you're up and you kind of experience these highs and lows, because again, I've met you closer to this guy than those guys.
Right.
And one of the things, even sitting here talking with you, it's just like enjoyable to just sit here and listen to you. Like you're obviously articulated in your thoughts. Like you're clearly like you liked things outside of baseball.
Oh, I love things outside of baseball.
Yeah. But then you're still competitive, still talented, great teammate, easy to talk to. Is there a balance where you find in your because you're still doing the same thing that you've been? Okay, so let me frame it like this. You and I are somewhat the same age. I got done playing baseball in 2015. This summer will be 10 years of not being a baseball player.
Right.
And I've done all kinds of I've run multiple businesses now. I've been in the big leagues. I've been a strength trainer, whatever, breath coach, trainer, speaker, podcaster, writer.
Yeah.
And you've been a baseball player, but you're still experiencing all these life things in the classroom of baseball. And then you found things outside of baseball that intrigue you and make you very curious and excited for living and all these sort of things. What do you think it is about the path of learning, success, failure, makes you the ball player that you end up being? What part of like the growth phase of being in your young 20s, mid 20s, late 20s, and then your early 30s and your mid 30s while doing the same thing? Can you even comprehend how you've evolved into a dad, all these sort of situations while still doing the same? Because I would imagine the failure and success is not as big to you anymore in baseball as it might have been when you were 22. Am I tying that together?
No, 100%. I think I have a pretty good answer to this.
Okay.
And so my son Kyler, like I told you in 20, I didn't play, and so I didn't play at all in 2020, and then in 2021 I signed a minor league deal with the Cubs, and Kyler was almost probably 9 months old then, and I don't even know if you know this, but you might through Instagram and stuff or social media, but he has I have
a good idea.
He has a disability.
Yeah.
And a rare genetic disability that causes, global delays and stuff, and kind of needs that extra hands-on help. And going through, like at that point in my career, have to sign these minor league deals, and a lot of guys who have played that long in the big leagues kind of usually shut it down probably around then, and maybe move on to doing something else. But like for that, not only for myself because I love baseball and I love playing it, but I mean, knowing that I'm like, dude, I gotta figure this out. Wow. for not only myself, but like for even more importantly him and his future. And I don't know what I'm gonna do after baseball. I don't know how I can make millions of dollars off the field not playing baseball. So I was like, I'm gonna freaking be good again. I'm gonna figure out how to how I can make this work and how I can give this kid the best life he could possibly have. And I think that kind of like jump started that extra boost in like maybe 22 when I came back up and I started throwing again with the Giants and stuff, and then had a good year with the Dodgers.
I was going to say, you crushed with the Dodgers.
Yeah, I just think that motivation, my whole aspect on life changed. I mean, I remember getting the news that day when we had like a genetic test, and it was just so devastated. And honestly, the Cubs had released me that year, like 5 days after I just got the diagnosis of Kyler.
Wow.
So I was like, man, do I even want to go back?
Yeah.
Do I want to still play? Like, I'm going to need to be here with him and help him and help mama out, whatever. And she was like, no, go back, go play. We got this. Like, I'll hold it down. So I ended up going back to.
Kudos to her.
Yeah. I signed a minor league deal again, third minor league deal in a span of like a year with the Pirates. Got called up in September. Pitched with them a little bit then, and then I think and then I ended up signing another minor league deal in 22. But like, I think that not giving up, not being like, I'm done. I knew I had more left in the tank, and I think I have more left in the tank because of him. He kind of gave me that extra boost, and like this isn't about me no more. This isn't my story. It's like his type situation.
Well, that's remarkable. B, that's what my question was really towards, because you're finding things, life changes, up downs, and you're still in baseball.
Yeah.
It's like your perspective to pitching has to have had drastically changed all these years. And that's why I was saying this to you. Like, I've clearly had motivations in my life here and there, but it's been in different pursuits. It hasn't been just towards baseball.
Right.
Where you throw a baseball in LA in that was 23, right?
Yeah, 23.
In 23, every meaning behind that pitch is wildly different than what it was in 12.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
You know, how have you balanced your life in that? You know, because you think when you're younger, you train regularly, or you just focus only on baseball, I would imagine, and everything revolves around that.
Right.
But now you have a situation with your family, you have kids, you have your own life, up, down, money changes, when you've seen big dollar signs to lower dollar signs. And like, I'm still caught up on the fact of being in the big leagues for 3+ years and then being on like a commercial flight from a charter,
that was a big difference.
Yeah. And what has been the things that have been able to sustain you to make it through a lot of those trials and a lot of those adversities?
Man, I'd probably say probably family, people who, like, this isn't like, as much as I love baseball, I feel like my family and stuff enjoy watching me more. And my mom does a really good job, and my dad, and just like, I remember in like those times where I was signing all these minor league deals, and I was like telling them and Erica, I was like, man, I don't love it anymore. Like, I don't, I'm struggling. This isn't fun. I'm in the minor leagues. It's a grind. Great coffee shops in AAA sometimes.
Okay, well, that's
great
a good
coffee
start.
shops. I guess some sleeper
It's a good
cities,
place to
some good
just sit
sleeper
quietly.
cities,
Yeah.
and it was just like that, and then it was just like, man, I don't know what else I'll do. So I just grind, I just continued to play, and it wasn't like about me anymore. Like, early on in my career, it was like first round pick, overall number one prospect, had a really good rookie. Like, it was like everything was going well, and then the second you do face like adversity, it's like how do you handle it?
Yeah.
And I had mine wasn't just like a up and down. It was like a 2-year, 3-year run of just bad baseball. And I just, every time I thought about like, man, this is like, I'm done, I was like, what are my parents not going to be able to watch me anymore? How am I going to make money and all this stuff? And then Kyler, and then just all these things around me that it taught me, the failure taught me it wasn't about me for some reason. I don't know what it was, but it was like, it wasn't about like I'm dealing with it, but like the people around me are affected too, and I think when things are good, like everybody, like it just, the happiness and everything's just better. Like, LA was an amazing year ago, right? Like, I had a 1 and like everything was going good, and I still struggled a little bit at times last year, but it's like the failure to me has just taught me like, man, it's not about you. There's other people who rely on me to put food on the table, and the second I give up, I'm letting them down type situation. Like, when I shut it down and I don't go train that day, or I kind of take a day off or something, the motivation for me is just like family, taking care of them.
Yeah, it's bigger than you, right?
Yeah, it's way bigger than me.
Do you feel that? You've had to have had bouts of pressure towards that, though?
Tons of pressure.
How do you handle that individually?
I mean, it goes in waves, It's like sometimes like you said, like when I said it, like when things are going good and you're throwing well, baseball's easy and fun.
Yeah, that's great.
It's great. There's not a worry in the world.
Right.
But the second you have a bad run of games and or a bad month or a bad week, you start getting that doubt again, and you're just like, how much longer do I got or whatever? And I just think that I don't know. It's why I need you. You're supposed to tell me how to handle this kind of stuff.
Oh man.
I'll do next time I'm like just having any of that, I'll just give you a call. I'll be like, Harv,
Give me a call anytime.
I'm struggling here, man.
You give me a call anytime. I think that it's I mean, I'll take a swing at it just out of pure enjoyment of the thought, but I think a lot of it comes down to what you said. I think that when you have something beyond yourself, something bigger than you, whether that's family, faith, spirit, a connection to something, you feel like you have the ability. I don't want to call it blind faith. You just feel like you have the power to pull yourself out of stuff. And I don't think we individually are strong enough to do it. And that's why I think a lot of people struggle aggressively when they're younger in their careers.
Yeah.
Because it usually starts out all about you, right? Like most of the time you go in young, and a lot of times you're not married and you haven't had failures. And that's why I asked you that question about when you have success early, does it create somewhat of an invisible prison? Because I think a lot of times you have such early success. I almost think that ends up being harder on people.
Yeah.
Because it's lying to you.
Yeah, true. It's a good point.
Yeah, and I think that becomes difficult. But I think a lot of it is that. But ultimately, it's really enjoyable to listen to you because I'm telling you, this is one of the things that I've had such admiration towards you, truly. I didn't even know this stuff. Like, I mean, you get glimpses of it.
Sure.
But it's different when you listen, when you sit down with somebody and you talk to them.
Chop it up a little bit.
Yeah, and you listen to their story like this. And I think ultimately, as a scoping out, I think my relationship with sports has become different from when I played in the way I viewed it as a player, because I think that sports is ultimately like just we've talked about this for hundreds of years with sports being around. It's a teacher to life. But I think what I've learned about people like yourself who have sustained a career, I asked that question. You watch somebody who has gone through their entire adulthood in the same sport. Yeah. And you're doing these things on the public stage. I mean, we're talking about the Los Angeles Dodgers here. Mm-hmm. You're pitching in front of 50,000 people while this is going on in the background.
Right.
You come up to San Francisco and you're on national television. This isn't you go down the street and you just have a couple things. Like this is publicized, and people have fans, and there's families that are connected to the Giants. You know? And so I think that I think the uniqueness of individuals like yourself, I think that the lessons get magnified and they expose you just more. And I've said it already, they expose you to who you are. And I think ultimately you get stories of understanding, like, okay, when I was in moments of pressure, when I had that pressure in 21 with the Cubs, or I getting released, or I had that pressure when I went down in 16. And you think of it as recently, I know I'm talking about a lot of things, but there's this concept, I've been talking to Chelsea a lot about this, was 0 to 1, because I ran a business. When you start a business, you start from nothing. You got to make something. Right. Then you got to make something that someone feels it's valuable enough to give a monetary transaction to it. And then once you get the one, you've made nothing to something. And if it becomes sustainable, you have a business and you have a life. Well, I mean, I had a business for a few years. I sold it off. I went into baseball, and now I'm starting back in baseball. And the hardest thing, or in a business, the hardest thing that happened to me a couple months ago is it was hard to go back to zero. Yeah. Because it's like this podcast. Like, I've done hundreds of podcasts. Right. I had a pretty nice brand going years ago. Yeah. Now I'm starting over. Yeah. I mean, I've had people who recently won't go on my podcast because my brand's not that big. And all I want to do is go, I had this. Yeah. Do I have to show you all the podcasts I've done, the people I've had on? And I want to fend for that, but it's 0 to 1. Yeah. And it's hard. And that's like that's why I think your story is so fascinating to me, is it's like you went 0 to 1 so quickly. And then you went back and had to do 0 to 1 in a different capacity. You had to go back to the minor leagues, get back to the big leagues after you had already been exposed to the big leagues. Right. And I think that ultimately it just brings you into positions where when you have pressure now, or you have situations with your family now, I think it's just the path. And you have situations where it's like, I'm feeling something, but I felt this before. And what has gotten me through this? It's my family. It's my belief in myself. This is how I stay stable. This is how I control it. And I know this will pass. And I think that's part of the thing with maturation, is you learn that things pass, good and bad. I think that's harder when we're younger because those gaps are so big. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that too is like the best thing is like when you have bad days or, you fell that day, say I go and give up runs. It's like I'm coming home to a wife,
Yeah.
an awesome kid, three dogs who adore me,
Yeah.
and it's just like, it puts everything into perspective for me. It's just because like, baseball is baseball, but like this is my life right here. This is what I am. And that's what sometimes fans don't understand. You get all the hate mail and all that, which I don't even pay attention to, but it's like, I'm going out there trying to do my job. I promise you the best I can every single time. And I'm prepared. And then, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. And then, the elite players are usually always good. But I think just like, that's what like drives me is just like coming home and seeing how happy they are, seeing how stable they are and what they have. It's like all of that is because of what baseball has given me as well, and without baseball, without Jared Ray through the chain link fence, like I wouldn't have anything. I wouldn't have my country club membership at ACC. I wouldn't have my house I live in. I wouldn't have, the money that I have. And
the stability
and just everything's just put in perspective over, that 15-year career that I've had so far. And, what it's given me is kind of that motivator still, what's to come. Like, who knows what tomorrow's going to give me or what's tomorrow going to look like.
I think that's the drive of curiosity, of being in the moment of what tomorrow is. But I don't think I think that if you had already kind of asked this to me, I think that's my answer back to you, is that you have to have foundational principles that you're non-negotiable. And it's like, if the house is stable, you're stable. If there's love in the home, there's love in you. And if you have that love, you have that container's full, you can go out and handle the chaos of what's going to come to you. And now, if we simplify that to an individual, I think in my opinion, that's where we were talking about before we press play about psychology. My belief on our brain is our physiology first, meaning if your body's not healthy, we shouldn't sit down at all and talk.
Right.
Because there's nothing foundationally set. That's why I've always just considered it breathing, nutrition, movement, sleep. And then we're humans with consciousness. We have social connection. And it's like, if there's a leak in one of these, you're psychologically off. Yeah. You're not going to be able to handle pressure.
Right.
You're not going to be able to now you might break and have an injury, or you might have some things go wrong, and you might have anxieties and those sort of things. But that's part of the process of figuring out how to maintain the principles.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
It's not like you just have that executed forever.
No.
I just think that the principles are the same across the board. You create a foundation, you stick to it non-negotiably, and then you go and experience life, which the methods of the experience are different for all of us. Your experience is way different than mine. My experience is different than yours. But we're all going to weirdly have the same story that you just shared. I'm going to have the same stories, and we all have pressure and hard things and trials and tribulations, etc. But ultimately, it's like having compassion for the experience individually and for everybody else. I think that was just my thoughts after listening to you.
Yeah. I mean, and you deal with so many people and know so many guys' stories, and Walker's a good example of
unbelievable story.
Yeah. Unbelievable story. And just how they navigate life to get to where they have gotten to is just, everybody's so unique, and everybody has their own way of handling success and handling failures. And I think that's just what makes, everybody special to who they are, not only inside, but how they affect people around them.
Absolutely. Well, let's wrap on this thought. When you think about the uniqueness of your story, this is a question that you'll have this podcast forever for you and the family. So it'd be interesting to see what you think, and maybe if it's still around in 10 years from now.
Oh, heck yeah, it will be.
If you were to compile all of the last 15 years into today and think about what you've learned from the story and what you're taking with you as you get into the unknown, because you have this past history that you can collect, but you still are in unknowns. So what have you learned from the story, and how are you navigating a current unknown right now? That's what my thought.
You want to answer right now?
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to be right.
Man, I think
I'll start with the first one. What have you learned from your story in just life in general, obviously, but we'll go from the chain link fence to now, and just a short version of what you just shared?
Oh, I would say maybe just being a good person and loving people gets you pretty far in life. Maybe.
Yeah.
Good people go far.
Why do you think that is?
Easy to be around, likable.
Yeah.
I like to.
Good people go far. That's powerful, dude.
I like dude, I like love. I love good people, and there's something, attractive about somebody with just good attitude and good energy. I don't know what it is, but it's like, you for sure would kind of go more towards that person than somebody who's, kind of like, I don't know about that guy type. Or maybe both. You would be able to handle them both, but like,
I don't know. I mean,
I think just good being what I've learned is like I think what's kept me in the baseball world long too is just being just being a good person, being the same guy every day.
Yeah, good people go far. I like that. I just think you're going to have hard things. And the only way you can get through that is love. Yeah. The only way you can see other people is through love of yourself, love of others. If you don't love yourself, I don't think you handle getting sent down in 16 and then coming back up and getting TJ and being silent for another year. Like, I think there's a big bout of self-love that gets formed in those years. I think that with your child, with your kid, there's a lot of love for others and compassion for others. You start to compassion for human suffering. Yeah. And I think that love unifies people. There's a reason why the team who wins the World Series in 2025 is just going to miraculously tell the story where they go, yeah, we had this week in the season when we were failing, but it all came together and we all fell in love with each other. And we just had the right chemistry in the club. Everyone has the same story year after year. Yeah, it's just like rinse and repeat. 100%. And so love unifies us. And I think you have to love who you are to be able to handle things and keep coming back, like keep going, keep coming back, keep going. Yeah. And then I guess my second part to that with you is you're still going to navigate unknowns and you're going to navigate the end of your career someday and all these sort of things. And maybe it's the coffee shop, maybe it's whatever's ahead of you in business and those sort of things. What would you, if you were talking to yourself 5 years from now, what would be the things that you would remind yourself in those moments where you're going to be in a pressure situation? You're going to be unknown. What would you tell the future you just to remember?
God, probably it's not going to be easy. I don't know. I know it's not going to be easy with just, Kyler and more kids, and just have patience. Is probably what I tell myself. Be patient. I always tell myself to be patient. And I think I posted something on Instagram the other day about the calmer you are, the calmer you like handle life, and the calmer you are, and the way you're able to handle just everyday life, the better. The better off you'll be. That's basically what the story was. Yeah. So just have patience and just know that it's not going to be perfect.
Money. I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, bro.
That was a great time.
Thank you.
Cheers. Enjoy it, folks. Have a good day.